Okay, fine. So in the
So,
last
hi
session we
Lakshmi.
discussed about role-based access control. In the last session we discussed about role-based access control. Here we discussed what are the different type of roles we have, how those are similar to EBS roles, and we discussed about these roles: job roles, duty roles, data roles, and abstract roles. And we compared and we discussed about how to find the version within the instance also, right? And we just gone through a few examples to understand these different type of roles. Any questions from anyone who attended these classes or who gone through the second session video? Anybody has any question, please you can talk about them.
Uh, Lakshman, I just joined this session today only. I don't have idea about whatever you discussed in your
Fine.
previous two
And then
classes.
that will be sharing that session videos. You can go through it. If you have any questions, so we can talk on those. Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm going to talk about these roles again, it takes time. If I brief about it, we'll have many questions again. Yeah, the best thing what you can do is you can go through that session video. If you have any questions, we can discuss. Fine. Any questions on this roles concept?
Hi, Lakshman.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, please. Any questions? Yeah. Seems
Hi, Lakshman. This is the third session or second session?
third session. Third session. The first session is just introduction session about what is the Fusion
Okay.
applications. The second session is on RBAC, role-based access control. Okay, how this RBAC
Okay.
concept works in the Fusion. We didn't do anything in the application, just we discussed theoretically to understand that concept or logic, how it works. That's all. Fine,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
thanks. So in today's session, we'll talk about user part within the Fusion applications. Say users in Fusion applications. Fine. So when I talk about users, we know how to create the user in EBS, but in the Fusion applications, the users are classified into two types: implementation user, other one is employee user. Okay, why users are classified into two types: implementation users and employee users? When you get the fresh instance, we have to start doing all the setups. So for that purpose, we use implementation user. After completing the required configuration to start with the application in terms of usage as a user within the organization or as an employee within the organization, we have to create the employee user. So to start with the application configuration, we require implementation user. To work on any application related transaction process, we require employee user. Here the point is, so which user we have to create first? First we have to create implementation user. If you can create first employee user, we don't require implementation user. Okay. So whenever you get access to fresh instance, that won't allow you to create the employee user definition within the instance. What is the reason? If you want to create employee user, we required our legal entity. Okay, we require legal entity and we required business unit. Okay, business unit, it is nothing but operating unit in EBS. Okay, EBS operating unit in Fusion we are calling as business unit. If you want to create employee user within the Fusion applications, we require legal entity and business unit. When you get access to fresh instance, is it possible to create the employee user with the legal entity and business unit? Yes or no?
yes, it's possible.
No, you got access to fresh instance. Can you create employee user directly? by selecting
No.
legal entity and business unit?
No.
No.
Not possible. Because in the fresh instance, how we can find our legal entity and business units? We cannot find. When we can find? Once we create that legal entity and business unit, then you can find. So that is the reason in the fresh instance, we cannot find our legal entities and business units until unless we create them. So that is the reason you cannot create employee user whenever you get access to fresh instance. So that is the reason what we have to do is we have to create the employee implementation user. To create the implementation user, we don't require any legal entity and business unit. So just we'll go and provide username and password, and we'll give the required access to that implementation user so that we can access the instance. Once we get access to instance with the specific user, we can start creating all these definitions, legal entities and business units and etc, whatever we create as a part of configuration. Anyway, those we'll discuss very detailed level. So first we have to create the implementation user. With the help of implementation user, whatever we required as a part of configuration we'll create once legal entity and business units are ready. When you say legal entity and business units, in between we need primary ledger also. Okay, primary ledger also required, but to create the employee user, these two are enough. You don't need to select your primary ledger. So, but as a part of configuration, this also required. So once we are ready with this information, then only you can create the employee user. Okay, you can create the employee user. This is the reason what we have to do is we have to create first implementation user within the application. With the help of that, when you get access to instance from Oracle, they'll create some user and they will be sharing those credentials with us. That user also implementation user only. Whatever the user Oracle will provide for our client, you can take that user. Based on that, with the help of the same user, you can start working on the instance, or else with the help of that implementation user, you can create one more user. You may create as a finance user or HR, HCM user or SCM user, or else you can create some common user and you can start working on the instance. But the point is, we cannot create employee user within the fresh instance. Okay, we'll talk on that. What is the difference in terms of privileges for these two users? Okay, so this is a point which you have to understand when you talk about users. Fine, I don't want to create employee user. I don't want to create the employee user. So say I created one implementation user called as ERP3. I created a user. Can we do all the setups with this user? Yes, we'll do all the configuration. Say we are going to implement financials. For entire financials, we can do the configuration. Okay, so for entire financials, you can do the configuration. Okay, we completed all the setups. All the financial application setups we completed with the help of which user? Implementation user. Implementation user name is ERP3. Okay, after that, we want to perform the transactions. We want to create the transactions also within the application. Yes, you can do it. You can create the transactions. You want to generate the reports. You want to run the reports. Yes, you can do that. You can do everything. You can do everything. Where we struck with this implementation user, when you talk about finance, we are talking about finance only. If you talk about other application, there are some other points we have to understand. So as an implementation user, you can do the configuration and you can perform the transactions and you can run the reports and you can do any other activities what need to be done by any user within the application environment as a consultant or just business user. So as a part of configuration, when you talk about only finance, everything you can configure which are related to finance except supplier creation. You cannot create the supplier definition with the help of implementation user. That means you cannot run your P2P cycle. you cannot implement, you cannot use your purchasing application, you cannot use your payables application. If you are using other advanced purchase related modules like procurement modules, those also you cannot utilize if there is no supplier definition. Okay, why you cannot create the supplier definition? What Oracle it is, supplier can be created by procurement agent. Supplier can be created by procurement agent. Procurement agent is nothing but buyer. Okay, Oracle made rule as supplier can be created by only procurement agent. Okay, whom we can create as a procurement agent within the application? Only employee can act as procurement agent. Only employee can act as a procurement agent. That means what we have to do is, you have to create employee user. The employee user you have to classify as a procurement agent. With the help of that procurement agent classified user, you can create supplier. To create the supplier, again this employee user required additional privileges, additional roles also, that we'll discuss later, now not required. So say for example you have employee user called as XYZ, and you have implementation user. User called as ERP3. This XYZ user is employee user. The XYZ user you can convert as a procurement agent so that you can create the supplier. When I talk about this implementation user, the implementation user you cannot classify as a procurement agent. Cannot classify as a procurement agent. That is the reason from this ERP3 user you cannot create the supplier. When I talk about purchasing application, within the purchasing, if you want to create any documents, those can be requisitions or purchase orders or any sort of agreements or anything. If you want to create, all you can create from employee user only. That means if you want to work on the purchasing application, you have to create employee user. The employee user you have to convert as a procurement agent. Being a procurement agent, you can work on purchasing application. Otherwise you cannot. Okay, so these are the points you have to understand. And within the application, they given the flexibility in release 13, that too with the latest patch application, where you can create implementation user. Once with the help of implementation user, you can do all the required setups. Then whenever you are ready with your legal entity and business unit, the implementation user can be converted as an employee user. Once implementation user is converted as employee user, the same user can be converted as a procurement agent, so that you can create supplier definition. Okay, that means implementation user also can have all the privileges, including the supplier definition within the finance application, if implementation user can be converted as a employee user. So up to release 13, now we are using the release 13 version. In release 13 version, if around 3 to 4 months back, you don't have option to convert implementation user as an employee user. Within the release 13, within the last year, Oracle applied 3 rounds of patches. Okay, that too in 2018. 3 rounds of patches applied for release 13. When Oracle introduced release 13, within that this is not possible. When they applied first rounds of patches, not applicable. Second round patches, not applicable. The last round of patches which they did last 2 to 3 months back, so with that patch application this is a possible. Otherwise your implementation user cannot be converted as an employee user. Even you are ready with your legal entity and business unit, you have to create the separate user as a employee user. Okay, even in release 13. Now in the release 13 with the latest patch applications, this is possible. That means implementation user can be converted as a employee user. When you are converting, you have to add the required legal entity and business unit to that same user. So these are the points we have to understand. Hope it's clear to everyone why we have to create implementation user first, why we cannot create employee user directly within any environment. Any questions from anyone, please?
Lakshman, I have one quick question. Means once we go live, so at that moment also, for example, if you are doing enhancements and all, so at that time also we need implementation user to do any configuration?
Yes, you can use, ideally you do it in the test environments, right? If you are doing in the production also, what you can do is, so we can use any one of the employee user for that activity purpose. Okay. Only for that activity purpose you can use any one of the employee users.
Hi,
That's all. In case of test, you can create a number of users. Doesn't matter. Even you can create a dummy.
Hi, Lakshman.
Sorry. Yeah, Raghu, please. I think you are talking. You are asking some question.
Yeah. Why this man? Sorry. Yeah, Lakshman. Why this much of confuse when we are comparing in R12? There is no this much of confusion like implementation user and the employee.
Raghu, from your side, there is some network issue that the bandwidth what you are using to connect to the session and all, I think seems to not enough. Your voice is breaking. Fine, no issues. I got your question. This is not a confusion. This is a control we call. Okay. So see, XYZ user is employee user. You can convert as a procurement agent. When you are creating the procurement agent, you can specify this procurement agent belongs to which business unit. In case of EBS, when you are creating you create employee, you can just add in the buyers list. There won't be any specification where you will be just specifying the operating unit and all. But here, to bring more very granular level of control, they introduce this functionality. Once we get into the application, the same you can see. Say you are creating one XYZ user, employee user as a procurement agent for BU1, business unit 1. So you can, that procurement agent can create, we can create the site, and the site can be assigned to only that procurement specific BU only. Okay. In the same way, when you are working on purchasing application, the procurement agent can work for which documents you can specify only that business unit. These points we'll see in the application, but you are just raising one point why they came up with this confusion. But my answer is that is not a confusion, that is a control which they came up. We'll see in the application how it is going to help us. And other important point is here they made employee user the user mapping, employee mapping with the user as an employee user, where we have to provide legal entity and business unit as a mandatory. Okay, since they made those mapping as a mandatory, that means if you are creating any employee who will be accessing the application, it's a mandatory. You have to specify the employees belongs to which legal entity. When you say legal entity, it's all about company registration. That will refers to the payrolls of employee also. Other side, the user is working for which operations. All are connected. All information will get connected and it will sync and work in the application process. Again, this, when you talk about employee, it's all related to HCM, human capital management, employee related information, payroll. So the payroll definition also we have to do to map this user, this employees belongs to which country, and the employee payrolls will run under which legislative data group. There are certain concepts which you have to understand. Okay, to bring more control only they introduce this, nothing else. It may be confusion when you see first time when you compare with EBS, but reality they did good job. We'll see that, we'll come to know. But just to understand why implementation user and employee user, why we have to create implementation user first, why can't we create employee user first? If you have any questions on this, please.
Lakshman, once the implementation user is converted to employee user, still he will be having the earlier one, right? Means he will be playing the dual role, right?
Yeah, exactly. That is the advantage. Otherwise, no use. So you created implementation user, you assign 10 roles to implementation user. Whenever you convert implementation user as an employee user, just you are converting, you are giving the additional privileges as a employee user, but the roles which are associated to implementation user, those will remain same.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So any questions on this point, please?
Ansi here, as you mentioned, implementation user can be converted to employee user. But employee user is tied to some legal entity and operating unit.
Business unit.
Right?
The operating unit,
yeah.
In Fusion we are calling as business unit, legal entity and business unit. Yes.
Yes. So once we convert that implementation user to employee user, only those legal entities and business units will be accessible to that implementation user?
Even if you select a specific legal entity and a business unit, okay, those won't be available for that user to record the transactions. There will be additional setup to give the access to the user for the same or different legal entities and business units. As a part of definition, minimum you have to specify the user, the employees belongs to which registration of the company, and it falls under which business process, which business unit, that we have to specify, because we are specifying that user, that employee user is not going to have access to those until unless you give permissions with additional setup. That is just for mapping purpose only. Okay, because of that mapping, if you select say ERP tree US business unit to so and so user, that user cannot have access to the same business unit to record transactions in payables or receivables or purchasing or order management. No. That is a minimum information which you have to provide when you create the employee user. That's all. So the business unit which you provide at the time of employee user creation, you can use for one task. That is, if the employee is going to raise the expense report, for that purpose you can use it. Apart from that, no. Again, to use also you have additional roles also need to be mapped along with that. That's how it works. So simply you can take the point as a minimum information you have to provide it. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thanks. Any other questions from any?
Lakshman, I mean, what are the scenarios when you're converting, implementation user into employee users? Maybe, I mean, the domain expert who is in what employee is also part of the implementation. Once implementation complete, so that will be promoted as a regular job.
No, I got it. See, you are working as implementation consultant. You cannot create employee user in the beginning. So we'll create one implementation user. You'll start doing the setups. You completed GL setups. You completed all the business units and you completed payable setups. And now you want to create the invoice and the payables. You require supplier, right? You have to create the supplier. Now you are doing all the setups by using the implementation user. You cannot create the supplier definition by using the implementation user. That is a time where you have to convert implementation user as employee user, so that it will allow you to create the supplier and site assignments to specific business units. Then you can create the payables invoice, or else you want to test purchasing application. Yes, you require supply definition. That is a time where you have to convert implementation user as employee user. Say you are working on receivables, fixed assets, cash management, not at all in the purchasing and the payables. In that case, there is no need of converting implementation user as employee user. When we are working on the receivables application, fixed assets application, okay, on order management application and cash management application, GL application, you can do everything being a implementer. This is what I specified. Please go on mute. Yeah. So this is the point you have to understand. If it is related to some procurement or payables related process where you have to deal with the supplier, especially, this classification, this conversion is required. Otherwise, not at all required. As a concern, please.
So Lakshman,
muted and
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. What I wanted to ask here is, so during the implementation phase itself, I can also go ahead and create some, employee users for the testing purpose. Is that
Definitely,
right?
we should do that. We do that same thing. Any user you can create, any employee user you can create, since that is going to be test environment, right? To complete all the setups. We'll complete all the setups. We'll be testing. Please see, I think Redkappa Chowdhury. Okay, you have to be on mute, please. You have to be on mute. I'm not sure why.
I have a question. That's why,
Of course, I'm talking. Please don't mind. Somebody was asking, I was answering. In between, if you are on unmute.
Okay.
Please.
Fine.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. See.
Thank you. Yeah, let me finish. We'll definitely we are here to discuss whatever the queries or any information related to this. Yeah, please. So I think you joined a bit late. I was addressing the same points in the beginning of the session. So if you are going to ask the question, unmute and raise your question. Please go on mute. Meantime, I'll be talking about if you have any cross question. Yes, you can again unmute and you can talk about. Otherwise, we are getting some background noise. If you don't have background noise, I don't have issue if you are going to be in the meeting without muting. Okay. Fine, done. Fine. Yes, this is the point.
Lakshman, sorry. Yeah, I understood your point. Okay, so basically we need to do the end-to-end testing. In that case, definitely we need to create an employee users along with the implementation users.
Correct.
And one question for that is, after converting the implement user to employee users, can we convert it back into implementation users, or is no more able to do the implementation task?
No, that means simple. You are going to associate legal entity and business unit to your implementation user. That's what you do. Then automatically system will create the person number. You cannot undo it. You cannot roll back this definition. Okay. There is no option where we can go to.
You mean to say you can't continue as an implementation user thereafter? Is that right?
Exactly.
Great, thank you.
The point is very simple. You cannot continue as implementation user means there is no privileges for implementation user. Say, I'll take simple example. I created one user called as ABC. Okay. For ABC user, I assigned the roles which are required to have a full privileges to instance to do the configuration. Now I converted ABC user as employee user. That means I associated business unit and legal entity. Now we cannot undo this activity, but still you can continue as a ABC user only. ABC user, already you given the roles which are required to work as a consultant. You can continue as implementation user. You can work as implementation user. How we are calling as implementation user? We are creating one user to perform the implementation, since we cannot directly create employee user. That is the reason we are calling as implementation user. Otherwise, don't think implementation user will do the implementation, not employee user. No. So we have 3 roles. Anyway, that point also we have to discuss now. So you have a specific roles. if you assign that specific roles to any user, that user can work on the application as a consultant related privileges. Okay, there's no point, you cannot continue as an implementation user after converting as employee user. Only the point is the implementation user will get additional privileges to act as an employee. The relevant tasks also the implementation user can perform, but implementation is not going to lose any privileges because implementation user is converted as an employee user. Only additional privileges implementation user can get being an employee user, that's all.
Lakshman, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, please.
My name is Pawan.
Yeah, Pawan.
Yeah. So when you create, when you say you have ABC user as an implementation user,
yes.
So instead of creating and as an employee, you can assign a pseudo user to ABC and still have the same access and privileges.
Instead of creating.
So instead of creating ABC as employee, say there is an employee already, an employee as a 1, 2, 3 employee there. You can assign 1, 2, 3 as a pseudo employee to ABC. Can have a 1, 2, 3 as a pseudo assignment.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that because when you are creating the employee, they given the username field.
Yeah.
Okay. Even for existing employee, say you created employee now. Okay. There is no need where you want to give the access to that employee to access the application. Later you got a requirement, you want to allow that employee to access the application. In that case, you can specify the user and you can assign the required roles. That's how you can provision the access to that employee user to work on the application. Yes, you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Possible.
Lakshman, who can create the implementation users?
Consultant.
No, you mean after the installation is done, you log in. You log in to create the implementation user.
One point here. So when I talk about instance and installation, so anyway, this is not done by our DBA. Once your client take the subscription from Oracle, Oracle will provide 2 instances. One is pre-prod and prod, production instance and pre-prod instance. Only 2 instances will get in case of cloud. The pre-prod is the one which we use as a test instance. The other one is production instance. Okay, this is a will get along with that instances. Oracle will create one user for us. That is nothing but implementation user only. Will get from Oracle. Then you can start working with that user only. With that user, you can log in and you can start with the configuration. Or else with the help of that user, you can log into the instance and you can create your own user with whatever the naming convention you require. That's it. Please, any questions, please?
This is also done
Lakshman, question.
Yes, Srinu. Yes,
this is also done by financial consultant or SCM consultant.
Any consultant.
Because we need to create.
No, any consultant. It's a matter of user creation. Okay, you are implementing finance, SCM, HCM, PPM, etc., etc. Let any consultant create user. Okay, being a finance consultant, you may create one user, but all the people may use the same user, or else you may create a separate users for each area that you may distribute. Okay, SCM people can use this user, HCM people can use this user, and PPM consultant can use this user, finance consultant can use this user. That's how you may create, or else one user all people can use and they can start working on the application, since that is going to be just configuration. Once configuration is ready, anyway we'll be creating the different users to provision the access, or else in test environment, everything, all the privileges you may give it to one user to test all the scenarios. The same EBS, how we do, like how many users you require, etc., etc. You can plan and you can do it. But only the difference we are trying to understand how these 2 users are different. That's all. The rest of scenario is applicable.
So Lakshman,
EBS. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question here, Lakshman.
Yeah,
so basically, in our EBS environment, as part of the development process, we will be having not 2 instances, but the multiple instances, like the development and the UAT and the prod.
Yeah,
but here we have only the pre-prod.
Here only 2. Here only 2. The reason this is a cloud.
So how will we?
Yeah. Here, in case of cloud, you will get 2 instances only. Okay, by default, instance in here instances we call as a pod. Instance in case of cloud we are calling as a pod. Okay, so we'll get 2 pods when you subscribe from Oracle. If you need additional instances, you have to pay for that. In case of EBS, it's on premise. Everything will be in our control. Just simply you can ask your DBA, get 2 more instances, get 4 more instances. Yes, it's a matter of just creating the instance in the server environment by the DBAs. It's a simple task for a DBA. But here, everything is managed by Oracle. As a client, you will get only 2 instances, 2 environments. If you need additional, you have to pay extra. Please go ahead with your question if you have anything.
So, Lakshman, let's say if you are working on a PaaS or IaaS, then you'll have to log in as sysadmin to create the implementation user?
No, any environment. I'm not talking about SaaS or PaaS or IaaS, etc. Any environment. It's not environment specific. You got instance, it could be anything. That is the reason I'm not mentioning those points, since that there is no condition based on that. Any environment, you just log into the instance with the credentials, whatever you get from Oracle for your specific client. Then you can create implementation user and you can start working on it. That's it. Yeah.
So there is no sysadmin?
No, they'll create user and they'll give you. No sysadmin.
So Lakshman, Redappa here, one question. I don't know whether you have answered. Sorry, I joined a bit late. You mentioned R13, because of these 3 rounds of patches, there is a provision of converting implementation user to employee users. But how was this handled in the previous versions?
Previous versions, you cannot do it. So again, you have to create separate employee user. And say, for example, you created an implementation user and you assigned 10 different roles. And for all the roles, you given different access permissions for a different business unit, different ledgers, different some legal entity mapping, etc., different inventory organizations access. You did a lot of work for that user. Now, since there is no option to convert implementation as a implementation user as employee user, what you have to do? You have to create separate employee user. Whatever you assigned already to your implementation user, all again you have to assign, again you have to map everything. That is, you have to perform manually. There is no other option. Now they simplified with this patch application. Can be converted.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions here, please? Okay. Now, if you take example of yeah, please.
So the employee user cannot be converted as an implementation user ever?
There is no great role of implementation user, just a user only. For the purpose of implementation, we cannot create employee user. That is the reason we are creating. The implementation user is not going to have additional qualifications.
They would have the access to do the setups, right?
No, one point here. By looking at the term called as implementation user, okay, don't think this user only can do the implementation. Okay, so when you are doing the implementation, first whatever the user we create, that we call as implementation user. That's all. You cannot create employee user. So whatever the user you create, that you call as implementation user. By looking at the term called as implementation, don't think this user only can do the implementation. Any user can do the implementation who has required privileges. That's all.
So the employee user can become can do the implementations if they have the necessary roles.
Exactly. That is a point we are going to discuss now. Okay, that's it. Only roles matter. Fine. Now take example of EBS. In EBS, say you have XYZ user. This you want to implement entire financials or along with the other other applications. What access this XYZ user required? fresh instance. You have an XYZ user you created. Now this user required access to what? To do the complete configuration. Fresh instance, just you got access to EBS fresh instance. You have a XYZ user you created with the help of sysadmin user or something else. Now, how to start with the configuration with the help of this user? What access this user required?
He requires the responsibility.
Which responsibility?
So system administrator.
That's
or,
it. That's all, nothing else. That is enough. Only this user required access to system administrator responsibility. With the help of the system administrator responsibility, this user, based on how the solution or multi-org structure is designed and planned and designed accordingly, and again how many applications are going to be implemented, for all those applications this user can create the responsibility, and those responsibility can be assigned to the user, setting up profile options, creating the business group, operating in it, right? Legal entities, primary ledgers, inventory organizations, etc., etc., and the rest of module specific configurations also can be done by that user, and finally testing can be done. Even it is a fresh instance, everything can be done by that user if you have the user has access to system administrator responsibility. The same way in the Fusion application, okay, within the Fusion application, okay, if you take the user, I'm just taking the user as a ERP tree. So we have ERP tree user, and from the ERP tree user we want to do the implementation in Fusion application. So in case of EBS, if system administrator responsibility is provisioned to any user, that user will be able to complete the implementation. Okay, even they can just do the transaction process, etc., and everything. But in the Fusion application, if you have one user, say ERP tree user you have, to allow this user to work on any configuration or anything which is required as a part of implementation, we have to provide the 3 roles. Okay, we have to provide the 3 roles. Those roles are, let me write below so that 3 roles. Please go on mute, please. Let me complete this. We'll discuss if you have any question. Okay, application, implementation, consultant. This is the one role. The other role is IT security manager, and other role is employee. So in the fresh Fusion instance, when you create the user, you have to associate these 3 roles so that that user can have access to entire system to do the configuration. That means this user can work as an implementation consultant. You may create one more user called as employee user. Say I'm creating employee user with this name. If you can assign these 3 roles to this employee user, yes, employee user also will have all the privileges. However, ERP tree user can do all the setups in the system as a consultant. The same can be done by this employee user also. Only the point is, doesn't matter you are accessing which user, only the point which you have to understand that user has access to which roles. You take example, I created an implementation user called as ERP tree, but I am not going to assign any role. What is the use of that user? You may call a user as a implementation user, but the implementation user cannot do anything since we are not associating any roles. Okay, based on the roles only we can do certain configuration within the system, not because of user is implementation user and user is employee user. No, that in terms of definition we are calling as implementation user and employee user, but everything works based on the roles which associated with that user. Now we'll talk about what is the purpose of these 3 different roles. Okay, fine, we'll see that. This anyway it's not required. So the application implementation consultant. In case of EBS, if you want to do the setup, say you want to do the payable setups, you have to be in the payables responsibility. You want to do the receivables configuration, yes, you have to be in the receivables environment. If you want to do asset setups, you have to be in the asset responsibility. And if you want to do the different setups, you have to keep switching from one to other responsibilities. But in the Fusion, not required. Okay. So the application implementation consultant role will give the access to do any application related configuration. So this application implementation consultant role will give the access to FSM. FSM stands for Functional Setup Manager. Okay, in EBS, in GL, similar to this Functional Setup Manager, we have ASM. What is the use of ASM? If you have idea, otherwise ignore it.
To create
By
chart of
using
account,
this,
calendar,
we can create operating units, accounting setup manager.
Yes, accounting
for
setup.
ledger creation.
With this ASM, you can create different type of ledgers, right? Primary ledger, reporting ledger, secondary ledger. Yes, from there only you can create, you can do that legal entity mapping with the ledger and the balance and segment values association, and many other ledgers related configuration you can do. From there itself, they given some user interface where you can directly switch to HRMS to create the operating units, and if required, any business group, etc., etc. That means that is a centralized place where you can do lot of configuration, but not everything. Okay, which are related to very primarily ledger, and ledger connected other configurations also you can do. From there, they given the user interface where once you click on create, say operating unit, it will take us to HRMS organization definition page. That's how the connectivity they given. There are a lot many other controls also which you can set, which are related to ledger, intercompany related, sequencing, okay, and subledger accounting related configuration. Everything you can manage by using ASM, but that is very limited feature which is available only in the GL application, that too to configure very few setups. So ASM stands for Accounting Setup Manager. Now in the Fusion we have FSM, Functional Setup Manager. Any functionality related configuration you can do by using the FSM. Which application related configuration? Any application configuration. If you have access to FSM, Functional Setup Manager, in the Fusion application, that means you have entire application access to do any application related configuration. Within the FSM, you can do any application related configuration. If you need access to FSM, you require access to role called as Application Implementation Consultant. Okay, once we assign the Application Implementation Consultant role to any user, the user can be implementation user or employee user or any user. Let's call it just a user now. If you assign application implementation consultant role to any user, that user will have access to FSM, so that that user will be able to perform the application related configuration. Any question on this specific point? Any configuration. It could be payables or receivables or purchasing or inventory or order management or any configuration. Then we'll talk about other two roles also, then we can take questions on this. Okay, what about IT security manager? Why IT security manager is required? It is more or less similar to our system administrator responsibility. So with IT security manager, you can create and manage your users. User part. If you have access to IT security manager, if you assign IT security manager role to say this user can create new users, and existing users also can be managed by this user. And if you have access to, or else let me write simple point, then we'll talk on that. If you assign IT security manager to any user, that user will have access to security console. Security console. What you can do with the help of security console? With the security console, you can create and manage the users. And in EBS, we do the menu customizations through sysadmin. But here, similar to menus, we have a roles concept that already we discussed. Here you can manage the roles. Here roles means existing roles. You can just do some changes if you want to do by copying, or else you can create the custom roles also. That is also possible with the help of IT Security Manager Access. So primarily these are the points. Other administration related specifications also you can see, but very primarily what we have to understand is we have IT Security Manager. With the help of IT Security Manager, you can manage your users and roles. Managing in the sense you can create new, and you can just maintain that information, and you can do required changes, and you can just associate roles to the users. And if you want to create custom roles as per the business requirement, you can do it. That everything you can do from IT Security Manager. Before release 11, or say up to release 11, we don't have security console. What we can do with the security console? User creation and maintenance, roles assignment to the users, and custom roles creation, all you can do. Up to release 11, we discussed we have a data roles concept. So up to release 11, we have Oracle is giving access to us consultants, or anyone like along with this product will have a access to IDM, or call as OIM. Both are same. When you say IDM, you call it as Identity Manager. OIM stands for Oracle Identity Manager. Up to release 11, if you want to create the users, if you want to assign the users to the, if you want to assign the roles to the users, or if you want to create the custom roles, we use this IDM, or you call as OIM. From release 12 onwards, by using this IDM as a background, they built framework called as Security Console. Now from release 12 onwards, we have a Security Console access, but the Security Console will work based on this application only, IDM application. But direct access they stopped giving after release 11 onwards. From release 12 onwards, we don't have access to this application directly. So with this application, whatever we can do, that we can do by using the Security Console. They given the Security Console access. When you connect to Security Console, we have to understand we are connecting to IDM or OIM. And since we have a data roles concept up to release 11, along with this IDM, they are given access to APM also. You can call as Access Policy Manager or Authorization Policy Manager. A stands for, you can take as action or authorization. So what is the use of this? So we discussed, whenever you create the primary ledger or business unit, automatically system will create the data roles. How system will understand data roles need to be created for which roles? All the roles application wise, we maintain the role templates. Say for example GL. For GL we'll have a separate role template. Within that all the roles will be listed. Whenever you create the primary ledger, against those roles only system will create the data roles. If you take example of payables, for AP will have a role template. Within that AP related roles will be listed. By default Oracle do it. If you have a custom roles, those you can add into that. Whenever you create the business unit, automatically the business unit will get assigned to all AP related roles, AR related roles, purchase related roles, which modules are BU specific as per EBS OU specific. For all the roles, system will assign that business unit. That's how data roles can be created in up to release 11 environment. To create data roles with that logic, within the APM only you can maintain all the role templates. Even custom roles related definitions also you can do within the APM only along with IDM. IDM some part partial part you can create within the IDM. The rest of definition you have to do within the APM only up to release 11. Now anyway, no more this access we have for APM and IDM. Only access is security console, and no more we have a data roles concept also in the current version. After release 12, that totally they changed the game which is related to roles concept. That already we discussed, but just I am addressing these points for your information. Tomorrow if you come across with these terms, you should not think these are very much new for you. Okay, so this is how we have this IDM and APM to manage the data roles and the normal user maintenance and role assignment up to release 11. From release 12 onwards, there is no data roles concept, there is no IDM, there is no APM access which we get directly. Only we are getting access to security console. But the security console, what we do, users part, roles part, thus everything is supported by IDM only, or this OAM. Any questions here, please? You don't need to understand too much on this, but just to have a basic idea, I'm talking about it. Any questions from anyone on this point, please?
One question. So now all the users who are there in R11, so they need to go to R13 only. That means like an on-premise one, like few users will be there in 11, a few users in R12. So in cloud, there is no such concept, right? So everyone has to be there in the latest version only, right?
Not very latest, not very older version. Okay. Not very latest and not very older. Say now we are on release 13. Okay. Release 13. The even cloud, the people who take in the PaaS subscription where customizations are allowed, they are still running on release 12 only. The clients who gone with this SaaS implementation, who are on release 12, they upgraded to release 13. That is a simple task which will be done by Oracle. And again, in release 13, there are 3 levels of patches Oracle applied. Still, few clients are standing with the first patch application only. There are few clients which they are just taking the advantage of latest patch applications also. So that's how you have, but you should not be very. Now we are in release 13. If you are on release, if you are just a SaaS model, if you are using the SaaS model, so you cannot be on release 11. For some time Oracle will allow you. Later they may suggest you or they may force you. That's how it works. Okay, if you are using the PaaS environment, even Oracle cannot force you because you have many customizations. You have to take care of it. That may be convenient environment for you. But anyway, if Oracle is going to recommend you in all the ways, if they are telling this is how you have to be, if you are using the subscription as some policy or etc or conditions, definitely we have to upgrade. But it's not very much mandatory you have to be on very latest version because you are using the cloud. If it is SaaS, automatically will be in the very latest version. If you are using the PaaS environment, you may take some time to get upgraded with the help of Oracle. Okay, this is the point we have to understand. So after release 11, we have release 12, right? So there are many clients who are on release 11, they upgraded to release 12. When they upgraded within the release 11, what are the data roles concept we have? The data roles concept, what are the data roles we assign to the user in this release 11 environment, those will be upgraded as is to release 12. From release 12 onwards, what are the new users we create? And when you are providing the access you have to provide as per release 12 only. Okay, so 12. And again, when we are moving from release 12 to 13, there is no big difference in terms of roles and all. Okay, that's what we have to understand. Now, even you are on the release 13, say you implemented with this version. So data roles, whenever you implement your data roles, system creates, that already we discussed. You upgraded to release 12, you upgraded to release 13. Still your data roles concept remains same, but new definitions, whatever you do, or new users, whatever you create, for that you have to use the release 13 logic only. Okay, So that's what Oracle is strongly recommending. Still, you don't go with the data roles concept since you upgraded from 11 to 12, 12 to 13. Still, you have a data roles within your environment since it's a upgraded system. So don't go with the same data roles concept. Follow the logic what is available in the release 13 for your new users. That's what Oracle is recommending. And there are some issues also with that, where like if you create if you try to remove the data roles for existing users, if you try to create R13 logic, it's not working also in the many instances. That's our experience. So that anyway, just this is a point you have to understand. Any questions on this, please?
Lakshman,
Yeah.
Pavan here.
Yeah, Pavan.
See, if Oracle is not allowing to do like many customizations in R13, what is exactly the role of the functional consultants going forward?
I'm not. I think you didn't attend first session. I'm not saying Oracle is not allowing. Oracle will allow and it won't allow depending on the subscription which you are taking. Say you are taking the SaaS subscription. In SaaS, you can do your reports customization.
Yeah.
You can do the interfaces, inbound, outbound. But some functionality customizations you cannot do. Functional customization. You want to build some new page, ADF page.
Right.
This is not possible. So along with this, you want to make this also as a possible, go with the PaaS. Platform as a service. This is software as a service. This is a platform as a service. Here, this is also possible. Yeah. That's what I was referring. Okay. These points we discussed in the first session. That is the reason I didn't repeat it before I talk about it. Yeah. Fine. Any other questions? Fine, no questions. Now, okay, we'll continue with this. So IT security manager role we have to assign to the user so that that user will have access to security console. Any additional users creation or the same user, any additional roles need to be assigned. Those can be assigned by the same user since the user has access to security console with the help of IT security manager, and any custom roles creation or etc. Everything can be accessed by the ERP tree user if you can assign IT security manager. When you assign the employee role, that user will have access to reports. In EBS we have SRS window, standard request submission window. Okay, so in the same way in Fusion we have ESS job page. Like SRS, here we have ESS job page. ESS stands for Enterprise Scheduler Service. Okay, ESS stands for Enterprise Scheduler Service. It's a job page here. Page, it's not window in the Fusion. It's a completely web pages. So in EBS, we have a SRS window. Equal to that in Fusion, we have ESS job page. If you want any user need access to that page, this employee role need to be assigned to that user. And along with that, if you assign the employee role to the user, the system will allow you to go to this ESS page, as well as it will allow every user to have access to employee self-service access. Okay, so every employee is required access to which information related to their entity related information. I mean to say entity in the sense employee related information, maybe the personal information or the experience related or pay slips or some competence related updates, etc., skill updates, etc. What areas of access organization provides to the employee to manage self-service access for the employees. That access also the user can get if the role is assigned to, employee role is assigned to the user. So primarily these three roles need to be associated to user, from which user you want to do the implementation. This is what we have to understand. Any question? Any question, please? If no question, directly we'll go and see how to create the implementation user. Initially, we can create implementation user only because we didn't create our legal entities, business units, and primary ledgers. So If any questions, please. If no questions, we'll go and see how to create the user, how to assign the roles to that user, and we'll discuss. Any questions?
Hi, Lakshman.
Yeah.
Hi, Lakshman. You mentioned that implementation user can be converted as employee user.
Correct.
You know, if is it okay for SOX compliance, SOX rules? Is it okay to become to play both the roles, implementation consultant or user as well as employee user?
Got you. The SOC complaints or other complaints doesn't talks about you have to create implementation user or employee user, right? It's since there is no possibility, we are creating a separate user as implementation user. That's it. Okay. So there won't be an issue with that. That is as per our application. Application doesn't allow us to directly start with the employee user. You can have a number of users. User point of view, there won't be issue. There should not be any manipulation related to transactions, but this is just user and configuration. There won't be an issue with that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other
Lakshman,
please?
How about assign the reports? You know, in R12 in EBS, you assign the reports to the request groups, and request groups are assigned to responsibility, right?
Yes.
So how are the reports assigned to the users?
So here roles we discussed, right?
Yeah.
So the role consists of, okay, here are some examples also we taken, some role names. Say payables manager is one role. Like AP Navigate GUI 1.2, right? In EBS, the seeded menu for payables is AP Navigate GUI 1.2, or you may call as 12, GUI 12. So in Fusion, the role consists of privileges or called as functions. Role consists of privileges and reports. That's it. In case of EBS, the privileges or functions are part of menus, and reports or programs are part of request group. These two will select as a part of responsibility definition, but in the Fusion, the role itself consists of these privileges or functions and reports. That's it. Clear?
So Lakshman, it means that we cannot create any custom ones. Like in EBS, we have a custom responsibilities where I can provide set of responsibilities.
Vijay, custom one what? Before that, which custom one you are talking about?
Means, for example, to the users, means we will be setting up as a inquiry users. Some will be something like an entry user.
Simple. You are talking about custom privileges, right? Custom function.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can custom role. Okay.
Okay.
Custom menus we create in EBS, right? In the same way here you can create the custom.
Okay.
Okay, that is possible. That's what. That also you can do from this security console. Okay. When you have access to IT security manager, it will give you access to security console. Within the security console, you can create the custom roles. Whatever Oracle will provide, that few seeded they will provide by understanding very general practices in the market business. So we have to create n number of custom menus in case of EBS. In the same way, Fusion also, we have to create as per users requirement n number of custom roles. There, what sort of privilege, read only, etc., etc. Yes, we can set it up as part of definition. Yeah, please.
So Lakshman, like EBS, so we will give to separate privileges n number of users. Suppose in my project 5 users.
No. Separate privileges to n number of users means for each user they need different privileges, means accordingly we'll create custom menus. We'll create responsibility for those users and we'll select in the responsibility. In the same way here, we can create a number of users. Each user you can create separate custom role as per their requirement, and you can associate. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, same logic. Yeah. Any other questions?
So Lakshman, so if I want to add an custom report, so I have to create a custom role.
Yes, see, to add custom report, you no need to create custom role. For existing, what are the role you assign to the user, to those roles you can add it. And the same role you associate to multiple users means in that case you have to think on that. The same report is required for all the users who are accessing that role or not. Yes means assigned to the same role, it can be accessed by all the users. No, that report access is required for only one user. In that case, the same role, make a copy. You copy the role, you give different name, include within that role you can assign that specific user. Done.
Okay.
Just copy name as per that, maybe with that username or etc. How you can identify, and include that new report or additional reports or custom reports into that custom role. Now once you copy that, you start calling as a custom role only.
Okay.
Done. Any other questions? Fine. So now we'll see how to create the new user. Say this is a fresh instance, you treat as this is whatever the instance we are going to deal as fresh instance. How to create the new user, we are going to focus. When we are going to take the navigation, we will come across a lot of information, but we are not going to focus on that. Now our target is user creation. Once we start working on those areas, we'll see how those works, what we have to understand, etc., etc. I'm not going to talk about too much whatever you see within the application. Our target is how to create the user, that's all. Now I'll log into the instance. Okay, we have an instance. Within that instance, I have one user which I created as ERP-tree. Now I will log into the instance as ERP-tree user. And to create the user, where we have to go? Once you log in, where we have to go?
Security console.
We have to go to security console. Yes, we can go to the security console from ERP-tree user. The reason is IT security manager is already assigned to this ERP-tree user. Okay, we'll go and see that.
Lakshman, one quick question before going. So, for example, in the on-premise instance, right? So, any final setups, a few core setups will do in the prod, but other things will move from LDTs and all. So, how in Fusion it will go? Means in the test instance, I have all the things. So, again in prod, I need to do all the things, or again there is some automated way.
Yeah.
Where we can create.
We have a concept called as configuration packages. With this, what you can do is, in the test instance, what are the setups you have, you can extract. System will create the file. That also I am going to cover in our classes that I mentioned as a part of course curriculum. With the configuration packages concept, you can extract all the setups from one instance. The same extracted file you can upload in the targeted instance, so that the same setup system will configure automatically with the help of the file. Okay.
Okay.
You don't need to do entire instance cloning, etc. with the help of DBS. Just setup data you can extract and you can do it. If you need transactional data also, for that only option is cloning. Entire instance will be cloned from one environment to another environment. But only setup data means configuration package will help us.
So this is something like we will use FBDI to load these setups, or
FBDI is very small function. Okay, that is spreadsheet, but here not spreadsheet. There, once you submit this configuration package, it will generate a lot many XML files and other files, and everything system will zip. That zip file you have to load into targeted instance. It will create big file.
Okay, so this is something through the server we have to load it, or through
Nothing.
We can do it?
As just a user, we can do it.
Okay.
We can do it directly.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we'll be covering that also in our classes. Yeah, we'll go through that detail. Fine. So already I created one user within this environment called as ERP-tree. I'm going to log into this instance with the same user. So when you get access, when you get instance from Oracle, yes, they'll create some user and they'll provide the same here applicable. Just I have a user called as ERP-tree within this instance. I'm going to log in. This ERP-tree user has access to these roles. These three roles are associated. Not only these three, some other roles are also associated, but those not required for us now. Just understand, you have ERP2 user, these roles are assigned. Since this user has access to IT security manager, from this user you can go to security console, and now you can create our own user. Done. So we'll discuss about all these points, what you could see here in the home page. All you can we'll discuss later, but now it's not required. Now our requirement is user creation. To create the user, what you have to do is, here is the navigator icon. Just click on the navigator icon. So this is the navigator in Fusion Applications. So within the navigator, go to tools section, tools. Within the navigator, go to tools. So within the tools, under tools, you have a task, everything we call as task. Here, whatever you see, everything we call as task, which allows us to perform some activity. So under tools, within the navigator, under tools, we have a security console task. Just click on this. If you don't see security console under tools, the simple point which you have to understand is, IT security manager role is not assigned to this user. That's all we have to understand. For any user, if you don't see security console, that means that user doesn't have access to IT security manager role. That is only the reason. Fine. Now anyway, this user has access to IT security manager role. Because of IT security manager role, we are able to see security console task under tools. Just click on this. Click on security console task. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so you had given me an instance link.
We'll talk on that.
So
Please don't go very specification which is specific to someone. If you have some issues, we'll discuss. Okay. We'll talk on that. We'll talk on that if you any some comparison or something. Now let's talk about we are talking about this only. Yep.
I was speaking with this user itself, because what happened was when I went to this security console, I was not able to find this. So there was a checkbox enabled. So when I gave the checkbox, I was able to see the security console.
Will
the tools.
No. It works directly. What are the points you are referring? We'll see that. You can show me where what you are referring. Where I'll open that instance also if required. Okay.
Oh.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah. This pop-up you can ignore. This point also I'll explain. It's the synchronization concept. Now it's not required for us. You don't need to touch this pop-up also. Simply, so once you take the navigation, click on users. Here left side you have a user. Just click on users. From here you can create our own user. Click on add user account. Okay, so let's provide mandatory fields. Okay, last name and username, password and confirm password. These are mandatory fields. So ERP1. I'm creating the user last name as ERP1, and username also I'm going to take the same. System is defaulting the last name as username. If you want to override, you can override with a different name, or else you can accept the same. And set password. Here the simple password policy we have. This also you can configure. Okay, so the simple rule is at least 8 characters, 1 number. We have an option. We have an option as a part of administration to set the rule also. I'll take you through everything. Not required. Now whatever we see directly, let's proceed with that. So password. Just provide password and confirm the same. So we just given the username as ERP1. Now we have to assign the roles. How many roles we have to assign? Those 3 roles. Here click on add role. Just click on add role. Search and find and assign. The first role is application implementation consultant. Just type here application implementation. It will display many roles here, but what we need is application implementation consultant only, not administrator, not manager or something else. Let it list out. So you can see here roles, application implementation administrator. The same role somebody copied. They copied this role, and the same you could see as a suffix. You can specify the suffix or prefix. If any role is copied, what prefix or suffix system has to take. This is our application implementation consultant role, and there is some copy also somebody created. In the same way, application implementation manager, that is also copy you could see. Okay, in fresh instance you will see only these three, 1, 2, 3. But in this instance somebody copied. That too, this is a visual environment. That is the reason you can see this additional. Don't go with application implementation administrator or manager. You have to select application implementation consultant only. The reason, the application implementation consultant only will have a full privileges to do any configuration. This application implementation consultant will have privileges or more than this administrator and manager. Okay, by mistake also don't select manager or administrator, select only application implementation consultant. Just click on that. It is showing the search results. You can notice here the role name is application implementation consultant. Here also role name is application implementation consultant. But if you look at the code, here the code is starting with ASM application implementation consultant. Here the prefix is ORA ASM application implementation consultant. So the reality, this is actual role. This is actual role. What are the roles Oracle is providing as a seeded roles? For that, few roles they are giving 2 copies with the different codes. Few roles they are giving only 1 copy. You can go with any one of the role. It doesn't make any difference. If you go with this, within this only you have this ORA ASM, or else directly you can go with this. No difference. For seeded roles they are giving 2 copies with the different codes. Okay, you can go with any one of the role. Any role you can select. 2 roles are same, codes are different. You can select any one of these. I am selecting this first one. So to assign this role to our user, click on add role membership. Nothing but assign. Click on add role membership. So the role application implementation consultant was added to the user. Say okay. Now what is the next role? IT security manager. IT security. In order to type full name, it will fetch. This is the seeded role. Somebody copied and just written some text here saying that do not use, don't use. That means they copied and they did some changes, modifications for their testing purpose or some other purposes. So select IT security manager role. It will list out with the same name what are the roles are there. It will list out. Here also 2 copies you can see. Role name is same, code is different. You can pick any one of the role. There is no difference. Same privileges since these are seeded. Again, for all seeded roles, they are not giving the 2 copies with the 2 different codes. For few roles, they are giving only 1 copy. For few roles, they are giving 2 copies. We are not very sure technically what's wrong and why they did this. So you can select anyone.
Can you modify the seeded roles?
Sorry?
Can you modify the seeded roles? Can you modify the seeded roles?
We can modify the seeded roles, but strongly Oracle recommends don't modify the seeded role. If you have a need of modifying the seeded role, just make a copy and do required changes and use it. That's it. We can. As a part of role customization, I'll take you through all those points. How to create new roles from the scratch, how to copy the roles, how to compare the roles, everything I'll be covering. Okay, the answer is yes, you can modify the seeded roles. Fine, I am selecting this role. You have to click on that. The selection should appear here. Then click on add role membership. Say okay. One more role we have, right? That is employee role. Search for employee role. Select any one of the role you can select. Both are same, codes are different. I'm selecting first one. Say assign, say okay. Now we assign 3 roles. Click on done. Next to add roles, there is auto provision roles. That is separate concept. I will discuss and I'll show you how to provision the access to any user roles automatically without assigning through manual process. I think some password got disturbed. I am just entering once again.
When you create any employee in EBS, you assign to a business group, right?
I am
Here
not
you don't need
creating
to do that.
employee here. I am not creating employee. However, you create user in the sysadmin. In the same way, here I am creating the user. In sysadmin, will give the username, password. You will assign the responsibilities. The same way, given the username, password, I am assigning roles here. In case of EBS, to the same sysadmin user, you can assign the employee. But here, from this page, you cannot associate employee to this user. But we discussed employee implementation user can be converted as an employee user. That statement is equal to EBS assigning the person to sysadmin user mapping. There, in case of EBS, you can go and remove anytime that assignment, but here you cannot do. We'll see those. Yeah, so this is the point we have to understand. Yeah.
I thought by assigning the employee role,
Sorry?
The user became an employee.
No,
by
no.
assigning the employee role.
No. To get these privileges, we are assigning this role. That's all. We are not trying to convert this user as a employee user. No. By assigning employee role to any user, you cannot make that user as an employee. Okay. The very basic use, any employee required access to what that you can provision to any user. So we are creating the user now. That user required access to reports. That user required self-service access. In current scenario, the self-service access is not applicable for this user because not a real employee, just implementation user only. Reports access this user can get. Clear? That is the purpose we are assigning the employee.
Meaning if employee to assign as a change as a supplier, so we need to come here and assign a role that states as a supplier or something.
Sorry.
No, so we assigned the role as employee, but he's still not employee in the system yet.
Correct.
Because this role is needed in order to be a person to be an employee. So in order to be a person to be a supplier, do we need to come and assign a role called supplier?
It's not mandatory for everything. For few cases, it is applicable. Okay, for supplier, you don't need to assign any role to make that user as a supplier. But to create the supplier definition, you have to assign the role. But when you are creating the customer, you don't need to assign the customer role. Okay. Now just see, simple point. To get some additional privileges, we are assigning the employee role, not to make as an employee. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So meaning if this role is not assigned, you cannot make this person as employee.
No. Not that is the meaning. This is very clear. I am telling here. To access these, we are assigning.
Yeah.
Lakshman, is it? Does this mean if we are comparing it to EBS, like for an user, if we need a system administrator responsibility, if we are assigning the sysadmin to that user, that user can act as sysadmin and those privileges can be accessed? Is it something like that?
Correct. Not only sysadmin, say you are assigning the payables responsibility to user so that the user can access payables. The same way.
Yeah. So whatever, if payables or receivables, whatever we need, we'll assign it accordingly.
Yeah.
So privileges is compared to responsibility in EBS, right?
Yeah. The same points we discussed in the previous classes. Yeah, that is true. Okay. Each role is equal to one EBS responsibility. That's it. So here, I think last session we discussed all those points. Everything we compared and discussed. Done. Fine. Now you can say save and close. Just say save and close. There is one synchronization program which you have to run that I'll be just covering once we create one more user and other cases. We created. So Oracle recommends to run one synchronization process, but anyway, for this user that is not that much mandatory. When we are working on some other tasks wherever it is required, I'll be covering that. Okay. Now I'm going to sign out from this current user called as ERP tree. Now we'll log into this instance with our own user. The username we given as ERP1. Provide password, sign in. Now, because of application implementation consultant, this user should get access to FSM. We'll go and check it. So if you want to navigate to FSM, what is FSM and all, we'll discuss very detailed level. Just to show you the access which is provisioned to this user, I'm just going to show you the just navigation only. So if you want to navigate to FSM, click on username. Next to user, there is some drop down. Yeah.
So in EBS, when you create a user and the user when logs in for the first time, he has to set his own password. So here you did not do anything.
No. Okay, what happens is, you know, this is implementation user, right?
Okay.
When you create employee user, that happens. Automatically direct notification will go to employee user, employee mail ID with the link. When you create employee user, you no need to set any password also. Direct link will be received by employee. From there, that user can reset the password. This is implementation user. Consultant ideally do this. That is the reason reset is not required. The reset option they given, since administrator create the user and employee has to reset the password. That logic is applicable for employee user, not for implementation user.
It doesn't matter whether it is implementation user or employee user. Everybody need to reset the password, right?
What is the, see, I am consultant. What is the need of resetting the password? Tell me.
Whatever changes you made.
What changes I did? What, see, I am user, I am consultant. I need one user. I created user, I'm using. What is the need of resetting the password?
You are creating that user for some other consultant, right?
See, some other consultant only will create user what they need. I no need to create for them if they are consultants. Yeah, fine, no issues, no issues. So that is not required ideally, but in the very older versions, up to release 11, even if you create implementation user also, first time it will ask you to reset the password. Release 12 they removed. Reality not required. When consultant is creating, so it is not to share to someone else. It's a self-usage purpose only. That is the reason there is no concept. But when you create employee user, that is really required. Okay. In case of EBS, you will create a user from sysadmin. To that user, you can assign the employee. That is the reason whatever the user you create, it will ask you to reset the password even if you assign the employee or not. But here for implementation user is nothing but the user which you create from security console. That is another point to understand. Implementation user means the user which you create from security console, that we call as implementation user. Employee user we don't create from security console. But no reset option is available if you create user from security console. If you create employee user, yes, that is required. That's required. The user will get the notification also. Reset password link will be submitted to user mail ID. That's how we have done. Once you reset the password again when they are logging into first time, again that is not required. Otherwise, you may not reset the password from that user. Within the application only, you may create a user or you may set the password. First time even employee is going to log in also, there is no reset the password option they will get. Only the option is the notification. If you enable, if you provide the valid mail ID, notification goes that user can set the password. So that's how they given here. Fine. So first we'll go and verify this user has access to FSM or not. Click on username. Once you click on the username, this panel will open. Within this panel, if you can see the task called as setup and maintenance, that user has access to FSM. Once you click on setup and maintenance, it will take us to FSM page. Just will navigate. We are not going to do anything. If you see setup and maintenance within the user panel, that means this user has access to FSM. How this user has access to FSM? Because of application implementation consultant role. That role only will give the access to FSM. To navigate to FSM, this is the task available. Click on setup and maintenance.
So, Lakshman, one more question on the user.
Please.
In EBS, if the password expires, you need to contact the sysadmin to reset it.
No, no.
Is it the same thing here or?
No, here also you can set the password policy. Okay, you can reset the password in the home page. You can see reset the password or forgot password. You can click on that. You will be able to do it. The link automatically
Even after expiry.
Yeah, that you can set as a part of user creation. There is admin part, in how many days it has to be expired and all you can specify, or else you can set never.
Yeah.
You can set
that is clear. You can set the expiry policy, but after it is expired, you have to go through system.
User will get notification to their mail ID with a link. Okay.
Okay. If you use that email,
you can reset the password.
Provided he has the email. Right?
User creation time, we have to provide email ID. Otherwise, there is no communication from system to user. That has to be done by some consultant or some admin who is taking care of the user part. That's it. Okay. To send any notifications and all to the mail ID, we no need to configure SMPT server, same as EBS. For any notifications also, approval notifications also, if user has email ID with the part of employee user definition, directly notifications and everything goes to that mail ID. No additional configurations required in the cloud. So this is FSM page. This, and here we have a task list. This icon we call as task list, or you can call as task panel, or say task pan. This, once you click on manage implementation projects, you can go to the project creation, etc. These are all related to FSM only. Anyway, we'll be working on this, but just to give you the information whether this user got access to FSM or not, with the help of application implementation consultant, we are going through these points. Okay. Setup and maintenance done. This user got access to FSM. The next we'll check this user.
What is compensation management?
If you don't mind, see, when I start speaking, you please don't interrupt me. If you have questions, I'll answer. Please don't take another way. As a request, I am saying. If you have questions, I respect and will discuss. But once I start speaking, you may wait for some time to ask your question. If I'm not speaking, yes, you can raise your question. It would be fine if you can do in that way. That's the reason I'm requesting. I'm not finding someone is interrupting me. Nobody has that intention. I know that. Yeah, fine. Let me just complete these 2 points. We'll see that. Okay. So IT security manager, we'll go and check whether the current user got access to security console or not. We know very well how to go to security console, right? Go to navigator. Under tools, okay, under tools, if you can see security console task, that means this user has access to the security console because of IT security manager role. You can just click on security console, it will take us to the same page. So this user has access to FSM, this user has access to security console. And what is the other area? The employee. Because of employee, we need access to reports. And again, this your role will provide the access to self-service service also, employee self-service access also. But reality, this current user ERP1 is not really employee. Okay, but that also we'll see. So if you want to check whether this user has access to the place from where we can run the reports, nothing but ESS job page. Under tools, you will find scheduled process. Okay, schedule. Once you click on this, from here you can submit the reports. This is the one. Other one is reports and analytics. Primarily, these two will be added into Navigator under tools. If you can assign the role call as employee to the user. Apart from this, the self-service access. This is what me. Person information, directory, onboarding, pay, options, career and performance, learning, benefits, etc., etc. All you could see is all are coming and added within the navigator for this user since we assigned employee role to this user. Now, even if you click on this personal information or other things, really this user is not linked with employee user definition. You don't find anything. But by default, the role will provision. If reality the role is the user is getting synchronized with the person ID, person number, then it will connect and it will display that relevant information. So this is what we targeted the user creation with these roles with this purpose. We created user and same we are able to see. Now, any questions related to this point or any other question, please. So one more point, we're done with the session for today. If you want to, if you have some questions, you can stay back or else you can drop from the meeting. Okay, we're done for today. Any questions from anyone, please?
Hi, my name is Hamayo. I joined quite late in the session.
Okay.
I have a question on the rollout of this ERP cloud system.
Okay.
Moving from EBS to ERP cloud, if someone is adopting the big bang approach, rolling out all the modules, financials, fixed assets, inventory, purchasing, cash management, do you think is it appropriate to put all the modules at once online from your experience?
It's it's all about all the modules or specific modules. It's for one country or multiple countries. It's completely, it depends how sort of business process they have, how simple, how complex, what is the volume of users you have, and what is the volume of transactions you are going to have, whether you want to test this system for few months or duration. So based on this, say for example you are moving from EBS to cloud, that means that should be re-implementation only. There is no other option. Hope you know by this time that point.
Yes.
Only re-implementation. Yes. There is no upgrade activity which can be done from EBS to cloud. Now you are using EBS.
Yes.
EBS, hope all the applications are very much stabilized and you are running very smooth process, but to take the advantage of this cloud and all, you are moving. So since the solution is implemented and everything is moving smooth in the EBS, so the same functionalities, the same EBS solution only we have as a part of Fusion. So whatever the applications you are comfortably running on EBS, all you can implement at a time in the cloud also. There is no issue because the product is not different. Same product. You implemented solution in EBS, you are running very smooth. The system as per your business requirement, the same you can do within the cloud also since solution is same. The EBS product only they taken into Fusion. So you can go all at a time or else you may have your internal plan. First we'll go with this, later we can do the PPM, project related modules, later we can implement. Till the time you go, let's go with a parallel run here and there. You may have your own plan and execution.
Just a question on this. You just highlighted the parallel.
Yeah.
Do you guys recommend to have a parallel or just it's a complete switch off, switch on? From your experience,
this is not it's just a new product or something like unknown product in the market. It's a Oracle ERP product. For the client, it is definitely new. That is the reason few clients, they don't trust with new systems, right? Their business data and all, it's very much important. That is the reason till they gain some confidence on the new system and user comfort, they may go with parallel run. Otherwise reality not required, or else company may find some good reasons to go with the parallel run internally, from externally not required for as a part of as a consultant or Oracle. They never says like you have to do this, you should not do that.
from the training point of view, if someone is familiar with EBS, I'm talking about the user's point of view. What do you think?
Training
what kind of how much training requirements are?
It's a very basic training, very basic training. See, you are not going to teach to the tables user what is the meaning of invoice and what is the meaning of payment, what attributes, I mean, what fields or what feeds they have to take into. They know very well how to create invoice, how to process the payment, but the same how to do with the same information, because user interface got changed. In invoice workbench, whatever you see actions in the bottom, you don't see in the Fusion. There is no form also. It's a completely web page. If you don't tell them, they will start searching. They'll be finding it's a completely complex application. EBS is very friendly. Fusion is very complex. That is the reason. Just we'll take through the complete process. Okay, in EBS in the bottom you'll find Actions tab. Here there is no such kind of tab. It's a completely web page. Here you can find all the relevant actions. So and so information is not available there. Not in that section. This section, if you want to add additional field in EBS, you will go to Show Field, right? Folder Show Field. But in the Fusion, this is how you have to do. This kind of knowledge you have to provide. They are not going to learn some great stuff, just whatever they are doing in the EBS, the same how it can be done with the same information. Since they change the framework, etc., you are going to educate them, nothing else.
Okay. And you are highlighting the stack or the technical the backend system. Do you think that being a technical person, what kind of knowledge is Apex or ADF? There are two environments, SaaS and PaaS. Because if something will be running on SaaS and some partial modules will be running on PaaS as well. So in this case, the technology know-how, is it ADF must or Apex can work as well?
Yeah, now we'll talk on this. Sorry. So if you are going with a SaaS, you should not talk about ADF. No question about ADF. But your technical consultant should be strong in BIP, BA reports, and SOA for integrations, ICS, integrated cloud services.
Okay.
And when you talk about workflows and all, really we don't need BPM expert. Reason, the workflows in EBS, AMU workflows they introduced through BPM. Those are very, very advanced workflow rules you can configure through rules definition. There are a lot many flexibility they given. You can create very variety of approval notification with the different attributes, different conditions. It's a wonderful component they given in the Fusion application. So you don't need to look for BPM expert who can do the workflow customization. So for any sort of requirement, standard workflows will support. That's how you have.
Okay.
And apart from that, what else you required? I don't see anything. The personalizations and all, anyway, basic personalizations you can see in the SaaS. If you are going with a PaaS, additional area which you have to focus on, just ADF, nothing else. Done.
Just ADF.
That's it.
How about because one of the guy was saying that the Apex will also be used there. I'm talking about the Application Express module. So can that be used?
I have seen two PaaS implementations. In two cases, they used ADF. I'm not very sure the Apex or something else can help in this process. Not sure.
Okay. So it's only ADF that which is the most suitable or the most commonly used one.
Go with Apex again. I'm not very sure. There could be some complexity and all. I'm not very sure. It's so what Oracle recommends, what clients are using. If they go with the PaaS, that is ADF only.
Okay. Obviously, the last question would be the migration window or transition window. Say that when you have a well-running EBS environment, you're going to switch it to cloud. As you have just mentioned that you have seen these two implementations. What was the downtime for the user? Do you guys go overnight or it goes for the days or what? Of course, EBS means that the heaps of data is there.
See,
so just
simple.
keeping in that.
Simple. You are going to move from EBS to cloud. right?
Yes.
No downtime for users till they switch. So you have all the solutions ready. That is, hope your consultant team is configured and kept ready as your documentation part. Configured documents and solution design what to be as a to-be document or say footprint, solution footprint. So that information is required for Fusion Cloud consultant to understand. On top of it, by understanding the additional features which are available in the cloud, what else you want to opt as per your business requirement, that maybe you have to identify. For that, the cloud consultant should run the basic workshops to address about this functionality, etc. From that you may choose something else. So your standard functionality anyway currently which you are running in EBS, that may remain same. If some changes are there in the cloud, that can be taken accordingly. If any additional functionality you want which is not available in EBS, which is available in the cloud, that you may take as some additional requirement that they will configure additionally. So once based on that, yeah.
Just to I'll rephrase it. Let's say I'm going to shut down EBS Friday night, and I need to start using cloud Monday morning. That's the window I'm talking about. So what do you think? How long it takes to switch from IBM? Does it take 4 or 5 days? Something?
No.
Some other?
No. See, you plan for cloud. Now what you have to do is you have to configure all the solution and you have to move all the data, right? The current system. This will become your legacy, right? You have to complete the conversion and you have to plan for the date from date onwards you want to switch on this cloud. So once everything is comfortable, okay, you can start working on that. It's a very simple point. Before you moving into EBS, you might have used some other system. How you planned everything in the same way you can plan between EBS and cloud. No difference.
Okay. All right. No, because my concern was only that when we migrate data from EBS to ERP cloud for all the module, so I just want to see that what would be the downtime for the user, because if companies having online transactions, and so if they don't use for next 3-4 days, it's going to be a heap of work to catch up with cloud implementation. Did you have this kind of a situation?
No, because reality they no need to stop anything, right? Just so you will be taking some cutoff date accordingly. You'll take the data, and once that is done, any will be continuing in the current system. Maybe that a very short few days transaction again you can move to the cloud environment. They can start continuing with the same.
That's exactly I was talking those few days.
That's always will plan for very short period, or else this kind of switching you may plan in the weekends. Okay, so that's how ideally we plan.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone, please?
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Lakshman, you gave access to the user ID and password, so we need to start practice on this release 13, or we have to wait some more time and we need to know much more about it and then we have to start practice?
You can start now. I think you got instance access, right? Now you got through registration and you can go and you can create your own user. That's enough for today. In tomorrow's session, we'll see a few more other system related process that also you can try from your end and we can complete. That's enough.
Oh, can you share this Excel sheet to us, please?
As of now, not required. After maybe 2 to 3 sessions, I'll do it. Now nothing, right? So we didn't start with any configuration process. It's very generic understanding, but anyway, I'll be sharing the sheet.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'll create the Google Drive that folder. Once I create, I'll be start placing the videos and the sheet and everything. I'll do that.
Okay. So we don't need to record every generally in the every class we start sitting and record and then.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. We promised we'll be sharing each session video, so I should record it. I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Lakshman, I have a question.
Yeah, Santosh. Yeah.
So when I log in the instance which you gave, so there, when I went to the tool after creating my own user, I was not able to see the security console or schedule processor. Even though when I added
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you, maybe somebody for their practice or testing, they removed IT security manager role from that user, I guess. I'll check and I'll correct it then.
No, what I did was, when I opened, there was an option called addition somewhere in that tool.
No, that is a personalization. No, that is a personalization. What you can do is the home page or navigator, what you want to display, what you want to hide, that also you can do. There will be setup icon, gear icon.
Yeah.
That's what people are testing. That means by default it will come. Okay.
Okay, because my screen is different than your screen. You see something like a blue, and my see something like pink or violet. And
That is framework. You can change. You can change the process. Same like here and there, same process. The colors. I'll take you through that. How to change the background. How to change the logo. This basic. How to enable the sandbox, and you can do all those things. I'll show you in the classes.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, Lakshman, this is Vijay. So I have the same question which I had at the starting. So it's something like I am a techno-functional consultant with 8+ years of experience. So now after this course, can I again climb something like a techno-functional, because you are telling technical very less components and all.
Correct.
So after taking this course, can I still climb as a techno-functional, or can I need to climb only as a consultant? Because in cloud, I'm not getting whether it's a 2 dedicated roles people will work, or it's one person who is going to do both the jobs.
See,
so I need to.
The fact is, if we talk about technical consultants, I have seen few people who choose the technical role as their career on cloud. Now, again, they are moving from technical side to functional. Their feedback is, we don't have work in our hand. Again, as a one consultant, we have to support 5 to 6 projects, even we don't have much work. So that is a feedback. That is a fact also. So if you want to work as a techno-functional, primarily you have to be strong in the functional. Since your background is technical, you may focus on technical area, which is a small piece of work, any project.
But I heard something like people will write some SQL queries also in cloud and customize some BI reports and files.
Every day, writing SQL queries is not a great job. The most of the functional people who are working on the application, okay, they are doing it.
Okay. And the SOVA zone, is it a huge role of SOVA, or is it something like a very limited role of SOVA? Means now on-premise SOVA, it is something
very
huge product, right? So
within the SOVA, we have different options for integrations. Okay, you can just learn and you'll be able to work on that integrations for as a technical resource.
And BPL and BPM, it is just a configuration.
Yeah.
There is no need for us to complete knowledge on the product. There is no need for us.
Yes. But anyway, you don't need to focus that much. Requirements also, you don't see that.
Yeah. So in this training, you are going to cover any loaders and also like loading from suppliers from file.
Master data, transactional data, everything we are going to cover. Now it's no more technical job. In EBS, technical people has to do those conversions. In Fusion, so functional people can load the master data and transactional data. That could be customers or suppliers, open transactions, assets, journals, and even items. Anyway, that we don't do it since there's a master data. I'm talking about it. Any conversions, what we do in EBS with the help of technical people. Now, without technical support, functional people can do it. That's how they made simple. We are going to cover all in our classes. I'll execute and I'll show the results also.
So means after the course, out of my 9 years, and also I can just show as a 3 years as a cloud, and I can I will be getting that much confidence, right?
Yeah, that level of knowledge. Yes, you can get it. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So Lakshman,
yeah, please.
So is there any recommended browser for this, or can it work on any browser?
Mozilla browser. everything will work within the Mozilla. If you go with Internet Explorer or Chrome, there are cases where certain functionality doesn't respond.
Oh, really? So Mozilla is the recommended?
Yeah, Mozilla is a very friendly and a recommended browser for our instance.
Oh, is it of Oracle officially recommends or?
I'm not sure about that. I am recommending because that's my experience and many other guys' experience.
Okay.
Yeah, the Mozilla is the best one. I was in.
Yep.
Yes.
And one more question. You said in the previous session you are going to share the dump for the certification.
Yes.
It will be sometime later or?
Later. Because now we are at the very beginning, right? Once we get into at least mid of course, I'll do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Lakshman, one more question. Vijay again. So is the instance which you guys will provide, right? So is it a full instance, like we can do anything, or any restrictions are there on the instance?
No restrictions, admin access.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lakshman.
Yep.
I'm gonna exit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, thank you very much for this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Yeah. Any questions?
Hi, Lakshman. Yeah. I'm of previous sessions. So one quick question: is the multi-op structure in R12 is same in Fusion also?
No, it's slightly different, but more or less similar. Just some difference you can find, but it's not a big difference. Here, the naming convention we call as enterprise structure. So in between our the standard multi-op structure as EBS, they introduced division concept. Some naming convention they changed. So more or less same, but there is some slight difference. Okay, that we'll be discussing in our classes. Then we will be configuring the same. We'll discuss very detailed level.
Okay.
Yeah. You can treat as almost same.
And
some naming convention. There are few points to understand to sync these two areas of understanding. That's all.
Okay, but overall structure will remain
same.
Somewhat similar.
Same, yes.
Okay. So one more question. Suppose I have one user which has created as an implementation user.
Okay.
And it is having access to 2 business units which are falling under one legal entity.
Okay.
Now, if I want to, so that particular user can have the transaction and setup access for both those OUs.
Okay, yes.
Now, once I convert this implementation user to employee user, I'm a little bit confused. What privileges and on what business groups or business units?
No, anything. You can choose anything, doesn't matter. That won't impact for the whatever you assign to implementation user. It's a simple point. You have BU1, LE1. You create an implementation user. You assign some roles to those roles that BU access and BU access you given. Anyway, we assign legal entity to business units. BU1 access you given. Right. For that, LE1 is associated. Now you are creating the employee user. You are converting that implementation user as employee user. You selected BU2 and LE2. Okay. You selected BU2 and LE2 at the time of conversion. When you are converting implementation user as employee user creation time, you have to select LE and BU. Okay. Right. Implementation user has access to BU1 and LE1 for specific roles. But when you are converting, you selected here BU2 and LE2. But still, your user will have access to BU1 and LE1 only. This is just as a part of definition. You can select any one of them. That doesn't impact for the assignment already which you did.
Okay. So whatever assignment is done for the implementation user based on the role, that will remain same.
If you need access to BU2 and LE2, okay. However, you assign BU1 and LE1 to your user, the same way these also you have to assign. Whatever you are selecting at employee user definition time, that is not enough to access and to perform the transactions. That's it.
Oh, okay. Maybe I will go through your second session. Then, if the doubts are not clear, then maybe tomorrow we will discuss on the same.
Theoretical point to understand. Once you create employee user, you can understand. Really, if you want to see that proof. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions from anyone?
Hey, Lakshman.
Yeah.
How to download this YouTube video, like the demo class 1 and 2? There is only link which is the interlink with the YouTube.
No,
but how to download that video?
These are very beginning classes. That is the reason I am placing in the YouTube. You can play it temporary purpose. Later I'll be placing everything in the Google Drive. Once I place in the Google Drive, you can download all.
Oh, okay. No worries. Thank you.
You can ignore. Temporary, you can just browse these videos. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, done.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Lakshman sir. So so I have not received the instance details. So will I get it later after the session, or
I'll share today for the guys who.
Yeah. Okay. And
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. Thanks. Any questions? Fine. If no questions, we can wind up for today. We'll connect tomorrow same time, and we'll talk about.
Lakshman?
Yeah.
Lakshman, can I call you after class?
Yeah. Sure, Srinu. Yes, we'll do.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So any questions? Somebody's unmuted. Fine. Okay, we'll connect tomorrow same time. Have a good day and good night. Thank you all.